to meet the Lord in a variety of ways through His saints.
Building a relationship with God, the stories behind faith journeys.
That's the miracle part that we had to believe in and have faith in. It wasn't what we wanted. It wasn't our miracle, but it's a miracle for other people.
How one couple turned their tears into hope for mothers-to-be by trusting in the Lord.
What's the last thing you're going to say to each one of your children that they'll remember for the rest of their life?
A father and husband who was on death's door credits prayer with bringing him back to life.
It's a shame to go your entire life and never know there is a God.
Knowing God is our Creator and Savior, a special episode of EWTN News In Depth starts now.
Faith is that awareness of the will of God in my life. That no matter what happens, His hand is in mine. That I can go on. I can trust Him.
Faith in God, a gift for some, a struggle for others, and for those who have none at all, the opportunity to begin a beautiful journey. Hello, I'm Montse Alvarado. For the next hour on this special episode of EWTN News In Depth, we'll share inspirational stories from our Faith Journey series that we bring you regularly during our weekly program. Our series allows us to meet Catholics who are finding God for the first time and others who have held on to their love of Jesus during some of the most challenging moments of their lives. We begin with a married couple and the program they started to support life. Tragically, it rose out of their own loss. Reporter Mark Irons takes us on our first Faith Journey in Depth.
The motto at the Paul Stephan Foundation, saving babies, one mom at a time. It was the story of newborn baby Paul that first began building up this foundation 16 years ago.
This doctor said, "Your baby has a diaphragmatic hernia. Would you like to have an abortion?"
Expecting their sixth child, Randy and Evelyn James were shocked when their doctors asked if they wanted to terminate the pregnancy after the diagnosis of a fatal lung condition. Abortion was not an option for the James. Paul was born and lived for around 40 minutes. Randy says an abortion would have taken away the joy of meeting their son.
Delivering our baby, holding our baby, kissing our baby, taking pictures, and having our family come in and hold baby Paul.
Father Stefan Starzinski, a friend of the family, along with Evelyn and Randy, all felt called on a mission to provide women with the needed resources and assistance so they don't even have to consider abortion.
When you help one baby and one mother, then you realize, why can't I help two? Well, how can I help three?
The smiles say it all here at the Paul Stephan Foundation. Randy and Evelyn James have provided a loving environment for children and their mothers.
Randy and Evelyn, they are just amazing.
Both TG and Samantha,
they're very patient with you, like they meet you where you are.
Were in desperate situations when they were pregnant. Samantha was homeless.
I was literally struggling just by myself.
And they're still receiving support for themselves and their daughters.
They just keep you like as a family member.
The Paul Stephan Foundation now has this new home in Orange, Virginia.
We can have up to 21 women and their children.
It has all the needed accommodations, and with renovations complete, it will begin filling up this week. These custom-designed rooms made for mothers in need.
So when they come here, they have everything for them so they could get back on their feet, get their dignity back, and move on.
A key aspect that sets this place apart is the provided education and job training component.
A program that it actually is paying for us to go to school and has a guaranteed internship at the end. They're supplying laptops and everything.
Preparing women for careers that will help them succeed when they leave is the motivation for John Kleinsmith, the education director here.
The educational program is just another extension of the opportunities that the Paul Stephan Foundation is extending. Beyond, food and shelter and encouragement.
Starting the Paul Stephan Foundation has been the result of prayer and faith, but there are real needs. The hope is that with more people pitching in, homes like this will develop around the country. Father Stephan says it's the words of Mother Angelica, the founder of EWTN, that have inspired him.
And she had a phrase, unless you're willing to do the ridiculous, God won't do the miraculous.
Mark Irons, EWTN News In Depth.
Randy and Evelyn are just one of many across the country who are answering the timely call to help mothers in need. Good Counsel Homes in New York City provides shelter and support for homeless mothers. The women are able to receive maternity care before and after birth, daycare for their children, and learn life skills to start building a better future for themselves. In Los Angeles, the diocese worked in conjunction with Harvest Home to open a new home for pregnant mothers. The 18-bedroom building is a former convent. Now, it's a place where women know they will have help bringing new life into the world. While the nation grapples with understanding the sanctity of life, the Church continues to proclaim the truth that we all are made in the image and likeness of God. That teaching hit home for the new president of the Catholic University of America, Peter Kilpatrick. He shares his faith journey, inspired by a priest's homily.
You told me the beginnings of a story, your conversion story, coming into the Church, having not really been practicing your faith once you got married. And there was this pivotal moment when you walked back in, your wife was pregnant and something happened.
Yes, my wife was pregnant and I had committed to raising our children Catholic. So Nancy and I knew that we had to start going to Mass. We had to baptize our child. And so we went to the local parish. It was St. Lawrence in Dinkytown, Minneapolis, Paulist Parish. Father Tom Comer was the pastor. And we went and visited him, and I said, Father Tom, my name's Peter Kilpatrick, it's my wife Nancy. As you can see, she's pregnant. We'd like to arrange to have our child baptized. And, you know, he looked at me and he said, you know, I don't know that I've ever seen you in my parish before, and it's important that if I baptize your child that you be practicing Catholics. And I was a little taken aback. I wasn't Catholic at the time, and I was like, gosh, was that in the fine print when I signed the agreement to raise my children Catholic? So I went to my first Mass in a long time, and it was delivered by a priest, Father Corbett, elderly priest, who just gave a beautiful homily about life. It was a story of a couple in Chicago who had had a baby. The baby had Down syndrome, and the baby also had a deformity in their esophagus. And unbelievable to me, the priest told this story that the doctor who delivered this baby for this couple counseled them to not correct the deformity and allow nature to take its course with the child, and they did, and the baby died. And so here I am with a wife who's pregnant, and it was just incredibly moving to me. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And my heart told me, Peter, you need to believe what that man believes. You need to practice the faith that man practices. And I pursued RCIA instruction. I was conditionally baptized. I was received into the church about 2 months later, and it was just the beginning of a great adventure for me. And I just fell head over heels in love with the church.
And it's been 41 years.
41 years.
These journeys back into the Church are unique. We had the honor of learning the personal stories of military veterans and service members seeking mental and physical healing in Lourdes, France. Reporter Colin Flynn shares the story of a few who were opening up themselves to God one more time.
You feel alone in the world. You really feel that nothing is real. You lose your faith.
I have injuries that you can't see. You don't know what a person feels inside.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
At the Grotto of Our Lady in Lourdes, France, servicemen and women from across the world are standing and praying for healing and for peace.
No other population in the U.S. needs healing, peace, reconciliation, than our military wounded, ill, and injured, our military that have seen combat.
For the locals who live here in the town of Lourdes in the south of France, for one weekend every May, if they were thinking of having a sleep-in, they can think again. The sound of trumpets and drums from army marching bands fills the streets from 7 a.m. This is the annual International Military Pilgrimage, which traces its roots back to December of 1944, when representatives from militaries across the globe gathered here to celebrate Mass at the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary. Then, after World War II came to an end, French soldiers and their chaplains invited German soldiers and their chaplains to gather here to pray.
It originated as an attempt to reconcile the nations of Europe that had been at war, to allow them to move on to the next stage of their relationship. And actually, at the first military pilgrimage to Lourdes, the Germans were afraid to come into the town because they didn't know what the reaction might be. And so that really began the whole tradition of healing and reconciliation.
Archbishop Timothy Baroglio is the Archbishop for the military services in the USA and is here with a group of pilgrims.
If you work with the military, as I've done for the last 14 years, you'll find that the first group that does not want to be at war is the military, because they know what it costs.
And that cost, for many who have served in battle, is a high price, as they are often left with physical wounds, but also deeper emotional and spiritual wounds.
Mom is very proud of me for, just taking the step to leave the house. Not only the house, the country, because I'm in a different country now. I'm just looking for that healing.
Judith Benjamin is a retired Florida Army National Guard. People come to Lourdes for so many different reasons, and people often say that they're coming here looking for something in Lourdes. They're searching, seeking peace, healing, forgiveness. Or what is it, Judy, that you're here looking for?
All of the above. Healing. I suffer from depression and anxiety. I also have PTSD. So healing, prayer, try to meet more people, to get out more often.
Tasks that may seem simple to you and me, leaving the house, getting on a plane, being in crowds, for Judith, this has been a brave step forward in her life.
I'm learning how to adjust and adapt and just take one day at a time.
Judith is part of a group of 30 former US servicemen and women whose trips here have been sponsored by the Knights of Columbus as part of their Warriors to Lourdes pilgrimage. Charles Galina is a retired colonel with the US Marines and is leading this pilgrimage. What is the purpose of the Warriors to Lourdes pilgrimage?
Lourdes is known throughout the church. The Shrine of Our Lady of Lourdes is known throughout the church as the place of healing. No other population in the U.S. needs healing, peace, reconciliation than our military wounded, ill, and injured, our military that have seen combat. The physical wounds of war are visible. The emotional wounds of war are not so much.
Moral injury is totally hidden. It is the wounds to the soul. It's the guilt, the shame of what takes place in combat. So how do we heal that? We heal that through prayer, the sacraments, and through ritual.
The servicemen and women who have come here are looking to heal the physical and spiritual wounds of war, and also the wounds from some of life's other unimaginable tragedies.
It's hard to share my story because I get emotional, but when people, especially soldiers, experience tragedy that's very, very significant, you kind of you lose You lose your faith.
Fred Hink is a staff sergeant at the US Army Reserve. For him and his wife Carly, being here is a chance for them to try and reconnect with their faith after they lost trust in God.
For me, I lost my son.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't realize that was the...
Yeah. So for me, it was a loss of someone close that no one should have to go through.
And what was your son's name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
Jonathan was just 22 when he passed away from a fentanyl overdose, and it left his parents feeling completely lost.
You need to toughen up or get over or shake it off.
People are there for a while and then they think, well, now it's about time you should be moving on and getting on with your life. If they haven't experienced that, they can't.
It's the PTSD and the things that you talk about with soldiers. It's so significant, and there's such a tragic event. You really do go into sort of a state of shock.
And to end the weekend, a beautiful candle-lit procession to the shrine of Our Lady, each flickering light representing someone's hurt, someone's pain, something that only they really know. This is your first time to somewhere like Lourdes?
It's amazing. It's truly amazing. And it's, I feel like it's a blessing, truly a blessing.
Peace, tranquility, prayer. They said the rosary over and over and over, and it kind of like bonded to my heart and said, wow, Judy, this is awesome. I lost, I don't know, that sense of pain. I had pain, internal pain, and I was like, wow, I feel good. I feel like a different person than when I came out.
The great healing for me is to be able to bring the wounded, heal the injured, their families to Lord.
And so this pilgrimage, this journey comes to an end for these former servicemen and women here in Lourdes. But really, it is hoped that this will be the beginning of a new journey, a journey within them. The road ahead for many of them will be long, but it is hoped that their time here in Lourdes will leave them with a renewed sense of faith and hope that healing is possible. In Lourdes, France, Colin Flynn for EWTN News In Depth.
Still to come on our special episode featuring faith journeys. From touchdowns to kneeling down in prayer, a talented football player discerns the priesthood.
We talk a lot about the power of prayer, and I felt like I got to experience it in a real and meaningful way.
Plus, a journey from sickness to health as a community gathered to pray a novena to save their friend's life. Next.
This virus is constantly changing. New variants have emerged here in the U.S. and around the world. We still have hundreds of people dying each day from COVID in this country, hundreds.
The coronavirus continues to put lives at risk. While the height of the pandemic has passed, the impacts are still being felt, from the staggering death toll to battles with ongoing sickness, massive financial losses, and a society that is rethinking priorities in life. Welcome back to this special edition of EWTN News In Depth. As we continue our look at faith journeys, we meet a man who says the coronavirus would have killed him if it were not for the power of prayer. Reporter Mark Irons explains.
We talk a lot about the power of prayer, and I felt like I got to experience it in a real and meaningful way.
To put it even more pointedly, late last year, then 44-year-old Jason Shanks nearly died from COVID-19. The president of the Our Sunday Visitor Institute says he was prayed back to life. Jason would need a ventilator to help him breathe. When his wife, Melissa, found out, she knew his condition was serious.
That's always a very scary news because you definitely hear once people go on vents, they don't come off vents.
At the time, Melissa couldn't visit Jason in the hospital due to restrictions, so she asked him to text her goodbye notes for their kids, just in case.
I mean, can you imagine having to think about in the spur of a moment, what's the last thing you're going to say to each one of your children that they'll remember for the rest of their life?
Jason's condition would get much worse. He caught bacterial pneumonia and developed a blood infection. His body began shutting down as he went on kidney dialysis. He was losing the battle to COVID.
We were asking everyone for prayers, and that's whenever someone had suggested to me Novena to St. Jude, and I wasn't that familiar with it. And I looked at it, and I was like, this is perfect, because it's a novena for lost causes.
Melissa rallied support online, and global prayers came pouring in. On December 15th, 9 days of prayer to the patron saint of lost causes began. On the second day, things began to change.
And so he got a negative COVID test, and he got his best chest x-ray that he had had since he went into the hospital.
On the 9th day, a prayer vigil was held outside the hospital. Jason was on the road to recovery. Melissa at his side throughout.
The courage that she showed, the love that she showed, the advocacy that she showed, and the amount of things that she went through in particular. I mean, in many ways, I think this is a story more about her than me.
Both say the trying time was an example of their marriage vows lived out, and their community pitched in.
People stepped up to provide assistance, whether it was food or whatever needs the family had.
A friend of Jason's, Bishop Kevin Rhodes of Fort Wayne, South Bend, visited him, celebrated Mass, and gave Jason the Eucharist for the first time since being in the hospital.
I thought, okay, it's him and I. This will be a 30-minute Mass. No, we did the full thing, right? We did everything in a homily, and he brought it. He was really fantastic. So I was really grateful.
And actually, I had a lot of joy. I felt like a parish priest again, but I was just so grateful for his recovery. We had prayed so hard and we were hoping.
For Melissa, that hope brought lessons in trust.
Clearly, an amazing amount of trust and just literally not knowing what the step is going to be in front of you, but knowing that it's God's will.
All right. Weight on the left.
Yep.
Right.
And as Jason took slow steps to recovery, reality became even more clear.
For me, it's a greater recognition that life is temporary and a greater focus on eternal salvation.
Mark Irons, EWTN News In Depth.
Jason and Melissa are a beautiful witness of the power of prayer and faith amid the global pandemic. The pandemic impacted every facet of our lives, including major events like the Paralympics. On our next faith journey, we meet a top Paralympian who joined me in studio shortly after playing the sport of goalball in the Tokyo Games in the summer of 2021. Matt Simpson says his Catholic faith was a source of strength and encouragement. In this week's Faith Journey, we're joined by two-time Olympian goalball player and Catholic Matt Simpson. Matt won silver in the 2016 Games in Rio and played most recently in Tokyo just a few weeks ago. Matt, it's so great to have you here in the studio. So good to see you. Welcome home.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about this journey. Tell me about being in Tokyo. What was it like being a Paralympian under COVID protocol?
It's really tough to be a Paralympian under the best of circumstances, right? It's a pressure-filled 2 weeks. You're away from home. You're eating weird food. And then add into that spitting in your tube every morning to make sure that you don't have coronavirus and all of the stress that comes along therewith, right? If somebody tests positive, you can take down your whole team. So there's just such an added amount of stress, the protocols, the masks, the distancing. It's somebody said it was kind of a minimum security prison, and I think that's about right. So.
Wow. Yeah, okay, that sounds tough.
Yeah.
So how did you first discover goalball to begin with? This is the
3-pound ball that we're going to show on Instagram hurling at you at incredible speeds. I think you said 50 miles per hour?
Yeah, it definitely can go that fast.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So goalball is the best sport that you've never heard of. It's the only Paralympic sport that's not adapted from something else. So, we've all seen wheelchair basketball and wheelchair rugby. Like, we can understand that. It's adapted from another sport. Goalball was created in the 1940s by some Austrian doctors who wanted to rehabilitate blinded soldiers, and it evolved from there. I started playing the game when I was 10 years old. Fell in love with it. It's fast, it's exciting, and it's a team sport. And for me, as a kid growing up with low vision and decreasing vision, like finding an arena where I could compete with peers without my vision being a disadvantage, that was so huge for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you face any trials, your team? Were you guys in any way challenged aside from the coronavirus protocol?
Just the entire process of qualifying for the Paralympics, making a team, getting there and competing, it's a big challenge. For us, we came in with high expectations. We won silver in Rio. We were really excited to make a run at the gold medal, and we took down Brazil in our first game. They hadn't lost a game in 5 years. So for us to beat them, the last time they lost was to us in the semifinals in Rio. So it felt good, but we lost a guy who's been our team leader and captain for almost 20 years. He got hurt in the first game, and talk about adversity and unexpected turns in the road. That was tough, and that was what we were battling for the rest of the tournament, was all trying to come together to fill that really unfillable void of our teammate Tyler.
And how did your faith then come into play with these challenges?
Goalball is, we played 7 games in Tokyo, so it's a 10-day tournament. It's, our Super Bowl only comes every 4 years, so it's all packed into that one 10-day tournament where, whatever we did in the tournaments the 4 years prior, it really doesn't matter. What we care about at the end of the day is that Paralympic finish. So much pressure, so much stress, being away from family and my wife and my little daughter.
Your newborn little daughter, yeah, yes. She's so little.
And, but it was just this, I'm a new Catholic, and so the practices of faith were so huge for me on a daily basis, being able to turn to my faith in a way that I really didn't have in Rio and times prior. And I told you a little bit about, I read Evelyn Waugh's Helena while I was between games, and at the end of the book, I'm sitting there wondering, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why did God put me here, playing this silly game? And at the end of the book, he says, Helena found the true cross, and her task in life was to pick up wood and to conform herself to the will of God, to pick up that wood. And I said, well, I can play goalball if that's what God wills me to do. Then I can pick up my wood too.
And it's such a beautiful opportunity for evangelization in ways you never imagined.
Absolutely.
So tell me about this new Catholic faith for you. You're a recent convert. Your wife came into the church with you. Why?
Chesterton says there's 100 ways into the church, and every man will approach each way from a different direction, and I think that was totally true for me. I grew up, with a very sincere faith in a Christian home with great parents who love the Lord, but, I just finding that there were questions I couldn't answer, and finding that there was a depth of thought and a depth of experience and practice in the Catholic Church that I'd never found, I'd never experienced. And growing up, I'm from Atlanta, and I didn't really know many Catholics. So discovering Catholicism was just this whole world that opened up to me. And man, it was just, it continues every day to be just this amazing gift of going deeper, and the disciplines of faith that I can find in the church every day are just such an encouragement to me.
Well, we love that you're representing our country and you're representing our church when you play goalball. I have one last question for you, which is just, how does being an attorney, which is your day job, in addition to being a Paralympian, you're remarkable, you're also an attorney, how does that come into play with your disability?
Yeah, the thing that I really got out of goalball that was so invaluable was, when I started playing goalball, I wasn't particularly good at it. I wasn't particularly athletic. I was scrawny. I was small. But the thing that it taught me was my challenge in goalball wasn't being blind. Before that, everything kind of came down to whether I liked it or not. People were going to evaluate me based off of my disability. Mm-hmm. When I found goalball, the only thing that didn't matter was being blind. And so I found this outlet where what mattered was I going to work harder than the other guy? Was I going to train harder? Was I going to get stronger and faster and better? And that was a big lesson to learn on the court, and then I could take it off the court. And I found the practice of law. I found another competitive outlet. For me as an attorney, I love there being a winner and a loser, and I love that I can do a little bit of work in the religious liberty space. To me, that's my passion on the legal side of things, and that competitive drive that drives me on the court and in the gym, in the weight room, that drives me, as I'm writing and working to advance the cause of justice.
Well, it's driven you to great heights, and we're grateful that you do this work and that you were here with us. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks, Montse.
Matt is an incredible example of the great accomplishments fueled by strengthening your relationship to God. After the break, we speak to another athlete who finds parallels between his faith and sport.
I can't even describe it. I don't have the words for it, but it was a great moment.
And a high honor, entry into the Swiss Guard. One soldier shares his journey to the Vatican. That story and more when we return. The Vatican, as the seat of the Holy Father, is a pilgrimage site for Catholics around the world. Millions set out every year to Rome to obtain a better understanding of our church, encounter God in a new way, and fall more deeply in love with our faith. But others are drawn to the Vatican with a sense of service and duty. As we continue our special broadcast featuring faith journeys, we share a rare look into the life of a Vatican Swiss Guard. As EWTN News In Depth Rome correspondent Colin Flynn reports, the path to join the iconic military unit is unique and personal.
Gian Andrea Bossi is 20 years old and from Davos in Switzerland, and he is one of the newest members of the Pontifical Swiss Guard, protecting the Pope and the Vatican. When did you first ever think of becoming a Swiss Guard?
The first time was about 3 years ago when I was in Rome. We were here with a group of young Catholic people. I saw the Swiss Guards and I began to think about it.
What was it about them that you thought, I think I would like to do that?
First of all, it's to serve in the Catholic Church, I think, and to see them standing there, it's an honor to stand there, to do your service for the Church, for the Pope, and I also like the uniform,
yeah,
for sure, yes.
They stand out.
Yeah.
Hard to miss them. And back in Switzerland, you went to university?
No, I went to school, and after school I worked as a lumberjack.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So in forestry?
Yes.
Gian Andrea grew up in a Catholic family, and as he grew older, his faith really started to develop.
I always searched for the truth. I always believed that there is something more than just humans, and so I started going to the church more, started reading the Bible, and my favorite thing, the rosary. I started praying the rosary.
Really?
Yes.
What was it about the rosary that you really liked?
I don't know, it was the repetition of the Ave Marias and the thinking about the life of Jesus, and I prayed it in moments where I was sad or where I was happy, and it was always like it gave me something that I'd say that this world can't give.
What did your friends think when you would tell them that you liked being a Catholic and that you liked praying the rosary, and then that you were thinking of becoming a Swiss Guard?
That's a good thing about in the town where I live. We have a good priest, a good Catholic priest, and so a lot of my friends also went to church with me and prayed with me, and so it was, for a few friends, was like, yeah, what are they doing? And they didn't get it, but with my best friends, I would say we always went together to church, we prayed together, so it was never a problem.
Gian Andrea took a break from his work as a lumberjack and joined the military in Switzerland, where he underwent rigorous training. And that's when he applied and was selected to become a Swiss Guard.
I like serving, I like the military, you're in with your comrades, and the military life, I like it. And
you like the structure?
Yes, I like the structure, that's it.
And the discipline?
Yes, and also the uniform, I like wearing it, I like serving, and that's why becoming a Swiss Guard was the first thing I thought about. And it's like you can serve, so you can work, but you can also pray.
And on the 6th of May, John Andrea was one of 34 young men who were sworn in as new Swiss guards at a special ceremony at the Vatican. What was that moment like when you were sworn in as a Swiss guard?
I will never forget about that moment. It was great. It was a wave of emotions, and I can't even describe it. I don't have the words for it, but it was a great moment. It was also a little bit of an honor to swear in, yes.
And you held the flag?
Yes.
What does that symbolize, or what does that mean?
Oh, it's in that moment where you swear to God, or you swear for the Swiss guards that you will give your life for the Pope, for your faith, and to serve as a Swiss guard, to serve the Catholic Church and to serve God. And I can't describe the feeling. It's great. I can't describe it.
His parents were present on the day too and were immensely proud.
There's no words to describe that feeling. It's just great, and it's a big honor to be here.
I'm a very proud father, and I'm just enjoying the day.
John Andrea will now spend the next 2 years serving in the world's oldest military, protecting the Pope and the Vatican. But even beyond that, he wants to continue to be of service to the Catholic Church.
I want to stay in the church, and I want to serve it to the end of my life. I hope I will serve until my last day.
In Rome, Colm Flynn, EWTN News in Depth.
The call to serve the church also comes, of course, in the form of vocations. Our next journey takes us to Kansas State University, where a successful football player decided he's moving his classroom studies to the seminary. Reporter Alan Holdren brings us this story.
As an athlete, it's easy to put your identity in the fact that you are an athlete. It's been helpful for me to know that, I put my identity in the fact that I'm a son of God. And that's where my identity and my worth comes from, and that alone. There's a lot of parallels between the game of football and faith. To me, football, it's a battle that you prepare for. Every Saturday is a battle in a way, and same thing with the faith. It's a constant battle. It's you versus the enemy, and it's one that you always need to be preparing for and always working for.
From catching Hail Marys to praying them, Kansas State University wide receiver Landry Weber is discerning a vocation to the priesthood.
Kind of went on a journey from, God, I think I'm okay, I don't really have any interest in this, to okay, maybe I'll be a little bit open to it, to actually desiring it, being excited about it, seeing myself being happy, and ultimately really looking forward to living that life.
Kansas State athletics run in Landry's family. His sister Mackenzie played volleyball for the school. His brother Stanton, also number 12, played wide receiver on the football team before him. Their mom, Nancy, was a cheerleader. Their dad, Stan, is a former K-State quarterback and current K-State Sports Network commentator. A strong Catholic faith also runs in the family.
I always thought he was interested in things such as the lives of the saints, and I remember taking him to a Divine Mercy chapel when he was a little bit older, teenager, and he really liked that. And so he was always very interested. So I wasn't surprised when he told me he was experiencing the calling.
And everything that happens in life, everyone's adventure is different, but it's going to end, and it's a very short period of time compared to eternity. So what they do with their soul and how they live their life of faith is the most important thing. And it also happens to be the best course of action to be able to be calm and fight through life's challenges.
It's fitting that the Weber family would also receive spiritual nourishment right here on the K-State University campus at St. Isidore's Catholic Student Center. Father Gail Hammerschmidt leads this growing ministry that's undergoing a $14 million facelift.
Christ have mercy. The biggest thing we're trying to achieve here is where people can encounter real friendship, true friendship, and obviously an encounter with the living God. They can grow deeper in their faith and come to know the love that He has for them and the mission that He desires to send them on. Landry is a beautiful example of this, which we are trying to do. He's a young man that has come here, has found a relationship with the living God, and is now going to spend his life in one way or another telling people of the goodness of our resurrected Lord. Iniquities and cleanse me from...
It's all had its influence. And after receiving his master's degree last weekend in accounting, Landry plans to study for the Archdiocese of Kansas City, starting this fall.
I am extremely at peace in this decision, and more at peace than I ever thought I would be. And it was hard to walk away from the game, and I thought it would be really hard to come back, to see my teammates, to see practice, and it's been way easier than I ever would thought, and it has nothing to do with me. It has all to do with God sharing the graces with me to have that strength, because I feel, you know, when you take a leap of faith for him, he takes care of you.
In Manhattan, Kansas, Alan Holdren for EWTN News In Depth.
Our prayers are with Landry in his pursuit of this path, as the church is in need of vocations and the world in need of young people on fire.
Everybody needs a little Jesus in their life.
A humorous way to bring the faith to others. A repairman explains the peace Jesus brought him through prayer and shows us the simple token he gives out to share Jesus' love.
Sharing a little bit of Jesus' love with everyone you meet. In our next faith journey, reporter Mark Irons introduces us to a man who says Jesus rescued him from fear and anxiety. In turn, he finds a fun way to share his faith. Take a look.
In the world of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the work never stops.
You don't get summers off either, you know.
But besides quality service, Catholic Darren Stern takes faith on the job and delivers something unique to his customers.
This is cute.
It's a wind-up Jesus. Well, a lot of times I'm like, if you want this air conditioner to keep running, keep this little Jesus by it, because I think it's the only thing that's going to make it work. And they're like, it's that bad? I'm like, it's that bad. Everybody needs a little Jesus in their life.
The thing is, once you get to know Darren Stern a little better, the truth is, he really couldn't be more serious about that.
I was having all these problems.
Darren says for the better part of 20 years, he struggled with chronic anxiety.
And I was like a perfectionist, and I didn't want to let people down.
He had energy and drive, but not knowing how to handle it, he was constantly worried and stressed.
I couldn't eat. I would just keep going, because it's in my mind. It was all you could do, just keep going, keep running.
Darren describes hitting rock bottom.
It got so bad that I was ready to give up. And I said, Jesus, you got to help me. I got to get through this. And I didn't know how to get through it. I didn't know what was going to happen. When you have nothing, then Jesus is all you have. And I was down at the end.
Darren recalls years of praying through the pain and finally giving up control.
I surrendered. I said to myself, let Jesus take all the bad stuff. I started embracing all that energy that just is stored up inside me. Stopped worrying so much about what other people thought and about all the problems. Just go out and do the best you can. And that's what I kept focusing on. You know, Jesus is right there. What can go wrong?
And he says prayer,
just talk to him and just listen,
has become a daily source of comfort.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.
Darren Stern, sharing his faith in little ways, telling his story.
You know, I still wake up with anxiety. Everybody does. You're going to have that. But now it's different.
Sharing hope.
All right, Jesus. Let's go home.
Mark Irons, EWTN News In Depth.
We have them right there in the relics, the history of our faith.
From children to seniors, a massive exhibit brings the relics of saints across the globe to inspire Catholics of every age.
In our final faith journey for this special episode of EWTN News In Depth, we bring you the work of one priest who's devoted to sharing the stories of the saints. He launched a ministry to share the relics of more than 100 saints with the faithful. As Mark Irons explains, visiting the exhibit is a faith journey for many to meet their Catholic heroes.
A crowded Catholic church with people spilling out onto the sidewalk and even more packing the nearby parish hall. It's a cold evening in the middle of a work week, but they've flocked to St. James Church in Northern Virginia to see a unique exhibit.
God likes to draw attention to his saints. God is a proud dad.
The hope is to give people an experience of God through the lives of the saints who love him. Father Carlos Martins directs this ministry called Treasures of the Church. He travels the world with more than 150 saintly relics.
Relics from saints that lived in New Testament times until the most recently canonized and beatified.
Can you show us some? Display tables are filled with the relics of holy men and women, including saints like Francis of Assisi, Therese of Lisieux, Kateri Tekakwitha, and Padre Pio.
On the same table, I have Blessed Carlo Acutis, who is one of the most recently beatified. This is a relic of his hair, provided by the kindness of his mother.
Catholic relics are verified through a church process to prove their authenticity, and they are kept secure inside containers called reliquaries. This exposition is extra special because you have the chance to actually touch all of these relics and feel the powerful intercession of the saints.
I guarantee people at each exposition that there's going to be at least one saint that is going to reach out and communicate with them in a personal way.
We met Jim Swiger. He's had a lifelong prayerful devotion to St. Jude, one of the 12 apostles. Here, he could finally venerate the saint's relic.
Having him close to me in a way that I never have before, because more in a physical than just the spiritual way. And I found it very moving, actually.
Relics come in 3 different classifications. A first-class relic is a body part of a saint, a piece of bone or hair, blood or flesh. Second-class relics are items a saint owned. Third-class relics are objects the saint has touched or items touched to a first or second-class relic. The majority of the relics these visitors will encounter are first-class.
It's a great reminder of the presence of, the saints and Jesus in my life and in the world. So just like the physical presence.
I think it just points us to people who have walked this earth before us and who have lived the lives of faith, struggle, sadness. Any of the ailments that we experience today, they've had too.
In addition to the saints, relics directly related to Jesus and Mary. The highlights of this exhibit, a piece of the Blessed Virgin Mary's veil and wood from the cross Jesus was crucified on. The impact on those who come here can be profound.
God likes to work the miraculous in the presence of relics.
Father Martins told us he's heard many accounts of spiritual, emotional, or physical healing.
Relics are not magic. They don't have a power of their own. They are not a power separate from God. So any healing that happens in the presence of relics is God's doing.
We got in touch with a lady who says she did experience a miraculous healing.
A good description of the pain would be sharp and searing.
For weeks, a nerve injury was causing Catherine Cantrell debilitating back pain. She had to walk with a cane. A parishioner at St. Philip Church outside Nashville, Tennessee, Cantrell went to the Treasures of the Church Relic Exposition when it came to her parish last month. She didn't go looking to be healed, but she lined up to venerate the wood of the true cross.
When I got to the relic, it was just this overwhelming sense of peace that I can't explain. And I placed my hand, on top of the reliquary, and the Holy Spirit spoke and said, "Do you want to be healed?" And I said, "Yes, Lord, I do." At that point, I realized I had no pain. I could walk straight, without any kind of leaning or discomfort. And I just was like, "Thank you, God."
There is biblical proof of healing in the presence of relics, including the gospel story of a woman healed after touching just the cloak of Jesus. Father Martins says the miracles Christ can work are not a thing of the past.
The faith spread throughout the world in large part because of the signs and wonders that he accomplished. If we aren't expecting those, well, we shouldn't be surprised when they don't occur.
Montse Alvarado came here to spend time with the saints. After a near-death experience in a car crash a few years ago, she says her faith has grown and her spiritual life is most important. Her main goal now,
driven person, but the only thing that I ever want to do now is just be a saint. Anything else I achieve in life is, it's if God wants me to achieve it, I'll achieve it. But other than that, to be a saint.
She's drawing inspiration from the lives of holy men and women represented in this room. And we met 10-year-old Nicholas Godoy, excited to visit the relic of St. Jerome.
He was a great writer. He was really humble. He didn't care about earthly pleasures.
And this young Catholic reminded us the ancient proof of faith is fully alive today.
We have them right there in the relics, the history of our faith.
Mark Irons, EWTN News in Depth.
That does it for our special Faith Journeys episode of EWTN News In Depth. We hope you were inspired by some of these stories. I'm Montse Alvarado. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next week, same time, here on EWTN.